Et comment demain finira-t-il?
How do we get to tomorrow? And what will be the end of tomorrow?
Et lesquels seront là pour tenir la
Who
main
will
au
be
futur?
here
Qu'il ne
to
tremble
lead us
pas.
into the future? This hand shouldn't be a shaking hand. It should be a smiling hand.
Quels hommes de demain et quelles femmes de
Who
demain
are the
seront
men
si
and
forts
women of tomorrow? Will they be strong enough
pour oublier tout ce que nous avons vécu,
to forget all the things we went through?
oublier les races,
Forget
les
about the
différences,
races, about the
les bords
differences, about
les
different
rivalismes
political
exacerbés qui ont
views,
massacré les pays où
about
nous venons.
tribal wars and massacres. This is where we come from.
Comment arriver à demain?
How do we get to tomorrow?
Il faut nommer à nouveau notre monde.
We have to give a different name to
Et en
our
le
world.
faisant, nous lui ferons
By
appliquer
giving
notre
this
Dieu
new
et
name,
notre temps
we
et
will give
d'autres
new
songes.
times, new places,
En
new
disant
dreams.
notre désir et notre
We will have to
force,
express
nous les
a
ferons
desire,
advenir.
a strength, and it will happen what
En
we
forgeant
want.
nos mythes,
By building
Nous les
up
mettrons
new
en marche.
myths, we will make sure that those myths start and get to a different day,
sortir de la
take us to a
croyance que nous
different
sommes
day.
malades.
We have to get out of this belief that we are sick.
nous ne sommes pas
We
malades,
are not sick.
ni faibles,
We are
ni
not
damnés,
weak.
ni
We are
perdus,
not
ni errants.
damned. We are not
Le
lost.
seul rendez-vous auquel
We are
nous
not
devons nous
seeking
hâter, c'est celui que
for an
nous sommes
exit.
fixés, avec la
Where we
meilleure
have
part
to
de
get
nous-mêmes,
is where we
notre
want to get,
humanité.
with the best part of ourselves, with a human part.
La première puissance
The
que
first
nous devons recouvrir
Power we
est
have to
celle
get back,
de nous
we have to
soustraire de la
regain,
volonté des autres.
is the power to break
cela s'appelle la
away,
liberté.
to break free from the will of
Et la
others.
liberté doit
This
devenir
is
notre passion.
freedom, and freedom has to be a passion.
La liberté doit devenir notre passion.
Freedom must become a passion.
La liberté doit devenir notre passion.
Freedom must become a passion.
Afo. Nous avons dans nos mains et dans nos têtes
In our hands
les
and in
meilleures
our
chances de
mind,
survie pour
we have the
l'humanité.
best chances for survival for mankind.
Décider de sa culture, de ses
We can
joies,
decide
de ses
about
possibles,
culture,
de son futur,
about
de
the
son
possible,
rêve,
about the
de
future,
ses
about the
espoirs,
dreams,
son
about the
identité,
hopes, about the identity
participation
of the
au
future,
colossal humain.
about deciding to take part in
Voilà ce qui
huge
s'appelle faire
human
l'histoire.
effort. This is about making history.
Et une civilisation qui ne participe
A civilization that is not part of shaping history is only good for rubbish.
Nous sommes à une époque décisive.
This is a decisive time. This is about choosing the quality of the life we want to lead. We don't need medicine to our ills. We need to get out. We have to make sure that those ills get out of us.
et, 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 et. Le monde a besoin d'un rien.
What the world needs is very
Pour la
little.
première fois, tous les hommes, d'une
And for
manière
the
ou d'une
first
autre,
time,
contribuent à
all
la marche
men
du
and
monde.
women, in a way or another, contribute to the
première fois
development
aussi,
of the world. But for the first
l'humanité
time,
joue
too,
le drame de sa propre
mankind is
disparition et
playing
pourtant,
the tragedy
désire la
of its
paix.
own disappearance, even though mankind wants
Libérons les
peace.
esclaves et nous aurons la
Slaves
paix.
have to be freed, and then we will have peace.
Ce n'est pas à moi de vous en apprendre
It's
sur
not
les
for
frémissements
me
de notre
to
époque,
tell you about what
remontée
we're
de la
going through
barbarie, de
today.
l'arrogance, de l'arbitraire, de
The
la bêtise,
barbarians are
du
coming
silence,
back.
de la peur.
Silence is coming back. Fear is coming back.
Ce n'est pas à moi de vous en
It's
apprendre
not
sur
for
le grand
me to
mérite
tell you about the
de notre
merits
époque qui se
of
confond
our
avec notre
times.
virtuosité à faire semblant.
We are so good at
Parce que, mesdames et messieurs,
making
nous faisons
as
beaucoup
if,
semblant
because we're
aujourd'hui.
very
Nous
good
faisons
at
semblant de
pretending.
coopérer.
We pretend we
Nous faisons
cooperate.
semblant de vouloir la
We
paix.
pretend we want
Nous faisons
peace.
semblant de
We
résoudre les problèmes.
pretend
Nous
we are
faisons
good
semblant
at
de
solving
comprendre.
problems. We
Nous faisons
pretend
semblant
we
d'être
understand each other. We
Nous
pretend to
faisons
listen.
semblant de chercher
We're
le
making as
développement.
if. We pretend
Mesdames
we
et
are
messieurs, cette
pursuing
chose-là,
development.
vous
Well,
savez,
we are so
est
good at
horrible.
pretending. It's awful,
Nous
ladies and
faisons
gentlemen.
semblant
We are pretending.
décoloniser et de
We are
venir au secours des
decolonizing
pauvres.
and we are helping
Mais
the
cette dernière
poor.
chose-là, elle est mortelle.
But
On ne les réussit pas depuis des siècles.
this is something we have failed in. We have failed in doing this for
Malgré
decades.
tout, est-ce que nous avons le droit de rêver
In spite of
le
this,
rêve de
doesn't mean we
l'espérance,
have no right
de la
to dream
justice,
the
par
dream
conséquent, celui
for
du
justice, for hope, for a future?
La réponse à cette question,
Well, the answer to this question
Eh oui.
is yes.
mais ce rêve-là est exigence,
But
hélas.
this dream
Exigence de
is
franchise.
pervasive. It stays there. And this dream demands
Mesdames et messieurs,
that we are
depuis
outspoken and honest.
3 jours, un
Ladies
tiers
and
de la
gentlemen,
planète,
in
presque
the last
66
3
pays,
days, a third of the planet,
400
nearly
participants sont
66
réunis à
countries,
Bruxelles dans le
400
cadre
participants have been coming to
colloque
Brussels
international
to take
sur
part in an international
la
colloquium
culture
on
pour l'avenir,
culture
pour le futur.
for the future.
Les débats ont été
The
d'une
debates
extrême richesse.
have
Les
been
débats ont été d'une
intense.
extrême franchise.
They've been very
Les débats ont
open
été houleux. Les uns et
and
les autres n'étaient pas
sometimes
d'accord.
difficult, sometimes
Mais quand
divisive.
des hommes et des femmes se rassemblent
People do
pour
not agree,
penser,
but
pour
when you
parler,
have
pour rêver,
women and
ils
men who
arrivent
come
toujours
together
à passer
to think, to talk, to dream, they
Voilà,
find a way
cet
out.
après-midi,
They always
nous sommes
do.
avec vous
And this afternoon, today,
pour vous rendre
we're
compte
with you to report
des
to you
différentes discussions qui ont
about
été menées,
what
des
we've
pistes qui ont
been
été tracées.
doing, about the different thoughts
Dans le
we've
seul
had.
objectif
The
de
only
dégager des
objective
pistes
now
pour
is to
l'avenir.
try to open up new ways for the future.
Et les textes que je viens de vous lire pour
Now, what I've been
introduire
reading to you as an introduction
cette
to this
rencontre
session,
sont des textes de Félix Sarr.
those texts come from Felwine Sarr. He's an economy professor, he's a poet, he's a writer, he's a musician, he's from Senegal. Sunni Laboutansi, who's a playwright from Congo, who was born in Brazzaville and who died in 1995. I've also quoted from him.
Un auteur du Congo.
And Nagula, I've also quoted, he's an author from Congo.
Parce qu'il faut que ce soit les
Why
poètes
have been quoting those people?
qui nous
Because we
introduisent
need the poets.
le sens
It's for
véritable
poets to
de
introduce
ce
us to
pourquoi
the true
nous
meaning
sommes là à
of
toujours
why
penser
we
les
are
problèmes
here, turning in circles,
La
or we're
raison
thinking
seule
and
ne
thinking
suffira
over
pas.
the problems of the
Il faudra
world.
regarder les choses avec
Reason
les
is
yeux.
not enough.
Et
We
c'est
need to
pour
put
ça
a
que
heart
je
into
suis
our
venu ici
thoughts.
aussi avec
And this is
Simon
why also
Winsey,
I've come here with Simon
musicien
Winsey here.
instrumentiste.
He's a
vais lui
musician and
je vais
a
lui dire
music
quelque chose
player,
avec,
and I'm going to
son
ask him
instrument,
to tell us
ouvrir
something
davantage,
with his
non pas
music
notre raison,
instrument, not to open up
mais
a
notre
reason,
cœur
but to open up a heart, to help
à
us in opening our
notre
hearts,
discussion de cet après-midi.
and to help us along in our talks for this afternoon. Simon.
À faux. Simon Winsey.
Simon Winsey, ladies and gentlemen.
On m'a demandé de faire le modérateur maintenant. Moi,
I've been asked to be the moderator here. Oh, I prefer to be an artist. I don't like to be a moderator, but I do my best. So let me call here Carol Karemera. Carol Karemera, she's an artist. She's an actor. She directs the Issue Center in Kigali. And she's been talking with us, and she's been taking part in those 3 days, and she's going to show you a short video. And this is a summary of what we've been talking about over those last 3 days. Carole, thank you, Etienne. Warm applause to Etienne and Simon. This was an excellent performance. Thank you very much to the two of you. As Etienne rightly put out, with words and poetry, sometimes when you have humans meeting each other, it can be quite divisive. But it means that there is a debate and there is life. So we would like now to show you a short video about the outcome of what we've been doing over those last 2 days, where some of you have been involved. Thank you.
My name is Gitte Tschoch. I'm the director of UNIC Global. UNIC is the network of the EU National Institutes for Culture. So we present organizations of the EU member states that work in culture abroad. And I myself have been working for one of our members recently in Kinshasa and the DR Congo. So I'm here because I both appreciate worldwide culture, and I'm also close to the EU institutions, and I'm very happy to see both of my worlds meet here. I have a lot of friends that came to this colloquium, and I'm also happy to listen and learn and then transfer what I learned back to people who maybe couldn't be here, or to EU institutions and our members in general.
Hello, my name is Pravali Wangeti. I am here from the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. I am one of the youth participants to the Colloquium on Culture for Future, and I'm here today to share my experience in working with the field of culture, both in Asia and Europe, but most importantly to interact with experts in the field and see what I can learn from them.
Voilà. Et maintenant, Nous allons
Good.
pouvoir commencer
Now we
notre
can
discussion. Je vais
start the
inviter
discussion,
ici un invité
and I will
spécial,
ask our guest,
Louis
Louis Michel,
n'est pas encore là.
to join us here.
Il nous rejoindra. Ça va très bien. Je vais donc inviter
Okay.
là maintenant les panélistes
I will now invite the members of the panel to join me up here on the stage
parce que nous avons
because
présence ici de hautes personnalités.
we have distinguished guests and participants. His Excellency
Almeida Fonseca,
Jorge Carlos de Almeida Fonseca, President of Cabo Verde,
Madame Sylvie Dumas, ministre
Mrs. Sylvie Durand, Minister of Culture of Costa Rica, Aina Calvo Sastre, Director of the Spanish Agency for International Cooperation and Development. And we also have the extraordinary artist, singer, and performer Rokia Traoré,
Manservisi,
and Mr. Manservisi, whom you probably know. He's the Director General for Cooperation and Development in the European Commission.
voilà. Le président va prendre la parole à un moment donné.
The President will speak at some point, but I wanted to ask the Minister of Culture of Costa Rica to take the floor.
¿Aló? Muy buenas tardes tengan todos y todas. Voy a permitirme hablar en español para respetar el tiempo y achicar las ideas con más
Please
facilidad.
please put on your headsets. I'll try and
Empezar diciendo
say a few words.
que mi carrera fue como actriz y cantante.
I started my career as an actor and as a singer,
¿Dónde era más fácil trabajar
and
con nuestra agenda?
I tried to look at what was easier to do, which sector was more easily accessible.
Muy honrada por
And I wanted to say how honored I was
la voz de quienes son
to
colegas en tantas partes del mundo.
represent the voices of many of my colleagues around the world. This event is a call to action. We have to act between now and 2030, and during this period, the EU will be a main stakeholder and a leader in the global work we'll do towards reaching the goals we have set for us. Etienne said it. We have to act. The world is asking us to act, and we have to act now, and we have to do it for rational reasons, but also for moral reasons, and we also have to do it because out of love for humans and mankind. In the last 20 years, the culture has been a catalyst for change, has been a sector or an industry where there have been great benefits that have been reaped. We will be able to improve the rights of citizens. We will be able to have a more sustainable development and better respect different peoples and improve mental health. We will have tools to improve the well-being of all kinds of groups in society, whether they are weak or more or luckier in society. And I think the president of Senegal talked about the coastlines, and that sometimes we forget other parts of countries, and culture can also bring together, bring closer people and their environment. people and nature. And with culture, we think of how we interact with one another. And with nature, we have forests, we have trees, and nature is a great gift, and we have to use it with care, because it is a gift that keeps on giving if we take good care of it. Let's not forget some very basic things. Our cultural industries, our creative industries work together, work with different artists, with different sectors, and in those sectors we have a very specific mindset. And many sectors and groups in society are asking us to help them. For centuries, culture was not well looked upon, but this has to change. This is essential because we have big changes coming about thanks to digital technologies. This is a very big change. So we have to ask for the appropriate budgets to be able to act and to be active, and we need appropriate budgets for culture. I am from Costa Rica, and there's something that we realized 40 years ago. 40 years ago, Costa Rica was not performing well. We were cutting our forests. We had an economy that was in a very bad state, and banks didn't want to lend us any money. But now we have responsible production methods. We have very good scores in terms of development, and we're a leading country in terms of carbon footprint. We only have 5 million inhabitants, and just like the Prime Minister of Bhutan said, all this is costly, true, but this is a challenge that we must absolutely rise up to. I usually tell my colleagues that we have to make all actors of the culture industry understand that, and this is the purpose of the manifesto. We are a developing country, we're a tropical country, there are mountains in Costa Rica, we're different climates, microclimate, and very often we have machines that break down. But we sing and walk and dance, and our culture, our heritage is what we carry with us. Music, whether it's from Europe, from the Caribbean, all this has been sacrificed to buy machines that broke down. We only have a few years left before we reach 2030, and we decided to get to work and to find partners. With the right partners, we can all do something, and we can all work from the bottom of our hearts. Workers of the cultural sector, all kinds of workers around the world, have a contribution to make, and I wanted to thank you for all the work you are doing. Thank you for making partners out of us, and thank you for having me for this event. I'm here to help you. Nature, culture, and democracy are all but one. And we have to tackle the challenges that are before us. And I thank you for your kind attention.
Merci, Madame la Ministre. Donc, vous avez bien vu
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. We've had a very high-level discussion. We have all kinds of stakeholders who are represented from the cultural sector and other sectors. The president of Cabo Verde is with us. His Excellency Jorge Carlos Fonseca is here. Welcome. He is a head of state, but he's also a poet.
Merci, merci. Et donc voilà, vous savez, les acteurs culturels, quand nous avons la chance d'avoir...
Actors of the cultural industry are quite lucky to have this level of representation. You're a head of state, and you came here, and you are one of those 187 or 190 states that are working together in this field. Thank you.
Bonjour.
Hello, good afternoon. I'll speak French first. This is not my mother tongue, not my official language. I'm not a minister of culture. I'm not a musician. I am a head of state of a small state in Africa. The islands that make up Cabo Verde are in Africa and in the Atlantic. But I'm also passionate about literature, and I love poetry, and I write poetry. I am a writer, but I'm also head of state, one of the African heads of state. This is my second mandate. Mandates in Cabo Verde are 5-year long, and I've reached the half of my second term as a president. I was asked to speak for 5 minutes about culture, talk about the manifesto on culture and culture for the future. I did not prepare a speech. If you don't know Cabo Verde, I'd like to tell you that we have 10 islands with a population of 530,000 people, maybe 1 million people if you count the diaspora. A week or two ago, we also were labeled as one of the freest countries in Africa. And an NGO considered that we were ranking as the best performing country in terms of democracy and freedom. And when I was asked, what is your reaction to this ranking? Your country is the freest country in Africa. And I replied, well, I'm happy, I'm quite satisfied to be the best country in Africa in terms of freedom, freedom of the press, freedom of expression. But as a president of that country, I have some ambitions. I'd like Cabo Verde to be the freest country in the world, not the freest country in Africa. Because to be free, I think that you don't need oil or diamonds or natural resources. Because we don't have that many natural resources in Cabo Verde. We don't have any precious ore. We have sun, wind. We have the most beautiful beaches in the world, I think. And often I say, I say, just as a provocation, that we have the nicest music in the world. Cesaria Évora came from Cabo Verde. And I say this because I have to talk about culture. Let me talk about music. I have a brother who passed away. He was a poet. He lived in Senegal, Mario Fonseca. He lived 30 or 40 years in Senegal, and he wrote a lot. He wrote a book of poems called My Country is Music. And that he was right. And I said that because we are a free country. We are a democracy that sets a standard. And how did we manage to do that? Well, because we have a very rich common culture. If you don't know my country, historians say that these islands were discovered in 1460 by Portuguese sailors. They said that there was nothing on the islands, and former slaves started to inhabit the island, slaves that came from Guinea. And then there was a split, and there was a fight that brought about a split on the island, and there were differences of values. When I'm asked, how would you describe people in Cabo Verde? Well, I would say that we are a mixture. We're Wolof, Peul, we come from many different communities. We are Jews and other communities as well. We're a mixture of all that, but we're not only a part of this or that community. Our identity was built mixing all these communities. So our official language is Portuguese, and we speak Creole, which is a mixture of Portuguese and African languages. I'm not an expert in social science, but I'm interested in those issues. And I think that culture and music and literature and this openness to the world, and the fact that we have our diaspora in Luxembourg, Germany, and Sweden, and in the United States, all this has helped us have a very unique identity and a very strong identity. And how does this hold together? Well, with culture, music, literature, the arts. And this is very specific to Cabo Verde, and the very specific way we are Africans in the middle of the Atlantic. This manifesto, Culture for the Future, is a great opportunity to talk about culture in Brussels and to talk about culture for our islands, for Cabo Verde. So I think it is very important if we want to promote tolerance, if we want to have shared values. I think we need to create the conditions of bringing about something that may sound utopian, but to bring about mobility between African countries. In Africa, you need authorizations, and you have the administrative red tape and visa requirements. It doesn't make sense. And then we have Europe on one side, Africa on the other. And our heads of state and our leaders will tell us this is utopian. It's impossible. But freedom was also considered utopian when I was a student, when I took part in different movements to free Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde. This was a utopia 25 or 30 or 40 years ago, and things have changed. We now have democracy and rule of law. And with democracy, we can share values, share our culture, and culture, music, dance, the arts, literature, or even sports. Bring people together. I was back home the day before yesterday, and on an island there was a first competition for Africans. So it was a track and field competition on the beach. It was a Pan-African competition. So on one of the islands, I saw young Africans, Moroccans, Senegalese athletes, Guinean athletes, people from Angola, Guinea, Algeria, who were sharing values, who were dancing together. Also Algerians who were on the beach, and they were dancing batouk, and this is a traditional and very African dance, and there were Algerian athletes, and same thing with Moroccan athletes. Sports and culture bring people together, promote tolerance. You gave me 5 minutes. I think I was a bit longer than that, but I'm very happy to be here with you. And please come and visit my country. It's a beautiful country. And the musician from Burkina, please come to Cabo Verde. You'll receive a very warm welcome, and please come and discuss music with colleagues in my country, because our land was the land of César Évora and many others. My country is music, and
Excellence, Monsieur le Président, nous retenons de votre intervention l'idée de cette utopie.
Thank you. Thank you. You talked about utopia, and you talked about the manifesto, utopia, and how stakeholders in the culture industry can feed that utopia. And culture is also a political thing, is political action, and this will help us fulfill our dreams, and our children in 30 or 40 years will remember what was a dream for us, and that will become a reality for them.
Voilà. Et pendant ce temps, je vais inviter Non. Au revoir. Vous êtes invité, oui. Merci. Oui. Alors maintenant, je vais inviter.
Now, I will ask the director of the Spanish Agency for Cooperation and Development to come to the lectern. Aina Calvo Sastre, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all for being here. First, congratulations and thanks for giving this special musical moment. And permeteu-me que les meves següents paraules les faci en la meva altra llengua, que és la llengua catalana, i que també serveixin per dir-vos que me sent molt honorada de formar part d'aquesta taula amb aquests membres d'aquest panell, no? I feel very honored.
This is Catalan. This is Catalan. This is why
I'm stopping. I was just saying I'm going to help you if I can.
This was Catalan. We don't have Catalan.
Here, being part of these panel experts. Me voy a dirigir también en mi lengua materna, la otra que tengo, que es la lengua castellana.
Well, and now I'm going to speak my other native language, which is Spanish. In my capacity as the head of the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation, and because we are talking about culture, I think it is important that we state a very essential principle: cultural diversity. Diversity is essential. We have to practice diversity through our languages in Europe. So I'm going to be talking in Spanish now, and both Spanish and English, actually. And I would like, first of all, to congratulate you on this manifesto. Thank you to the European Commission. Congratulations to all the people in the European Commission who made this possible. This is an essential document because the thing is, we have lost the battle for the objectives of sustainable development. We have not achieved objectives on culture.
The European Commission has this manifesto, and this manifesto can be a way of leading culture as a key matter in terms of international cooperation and cooperation for development. Creo que eso es fundamental. Para la Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional, la cultura siempre ha sido.
For the Spanish Agency for International Development, culture has always been essential.
And we were born as an Instituto de Cultura Hispánica, as an Hispanic Institute of Culture. No es casual que la Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo sea la sede.
Yet there are two libraries with us. We have the seat for the two libraries.
We have two libraries in our agency. There is a connection between our origins and this combination of development and culture. And what do we mean when we say we practice this since 30 years ago? At the very beginning, we didn't do this under a plan. It was not intentionally. It was a need, because we needed to be able to work with our first step region of work, which was Latin America. And we have in common something as powerful as the culture and language. And that meant a path of going ahead. Desde ese momento,
and from there, we started to give shape to this. From 2007, we had a strategy that made it possible to have this policy as an essential aspect.
We are saying that when we give support to the peace process in Colombia, as we do, and we do it because we believe in peace, we believe in human rights, and we want to contribute to the development of Colombia. And we feel as committed as them. We use the building of libraries. We use the building, sorry? Yeah. Ah, vale. It's horrible. The combination is horrible. Sorry about that. So, but the Spanish is okay? Yes, perfecto. Cuando hicimos el apoyo a los procesos de paz,
what I was saying is to support this peace process in Colombia, to have the FARC warriors reintegrated into society. We did it through libraries. That's the places where you had all those attacks. and the bombings. So those were the places where you had the frontier, and around this place where you had the warring parties' territories. This is where we built the libraries. Building the libraries was part of development. We had those cultural centers financed from the European Union. Thank you to the European Union. This led to major change in this conflict area where you had the border between the independent zone and the government zone. So around this area on the border, we developed libraries. When we do in Mauritania, where we digitalize the archives in Mauritania, we realize too that memory is essential, is an essential engine for development. We have to carry on preserving memory. Our memory, but the memory of our citizens, of everybody else's around the world. So you might say those are nice words. Yes, nice words, but there is also development around industry, around the economy. And the economy and culture is also about making money, is also about being an industry. And every time we work on the economy, on businesses, on the private sector, that has to be profitable in developing countries. If you do not have illegal certainty around it, then we have lost the battle. If we want to make sure that there is legal certainty, then we have to make sure that we have capacity building in the institutions. If we want to reinforce institutions, then you have to work with civil society, and we have to understand and respect cultural diversity, which is really key to the proper working of a society. We must make sure that we free up this diversity, that society frees its potential. It's only through culture that you feel about emotions. And when you want to denounce human rights violations, when you want to claim equality between people, when you want to put forward and bring to light contradictions, and especially about inequalities, there are also inequalities in Europe, culture is a key engine to be able to do all this. We want to contribute to disseminating this manifesto. We want to have it being made part and parcel of the Agenda 2030. Culture should be not something to decorate, as something non-essential, but no, it should be a key to development.
Merci, Madame la Directrice.
Well, thank you very much, Madame Director, for the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation. There is strong commitment. We can see that this manifesto that has been debated with key points that are technical, political. Indeed, that should be part and parcel of Agenda 2030 to build up a new platform for international governance, taking on board those aspects. What we've been talking about yesterday, we realized that culture was not only a means for development, not only something you fall back to when you're looking for solutions. No, it is the objective. It is humanity. Our humanity is in culture. It is on behalf of culture. It is we have contradictions that are built on culture. We have cultural aspects that drag us back. So we have to use culture, on the contrary, to take us forward. And we have those resources among artists, among people. I'm going to introduce an artist now, famous artist, Sorat Traoré. She's an artist, but she's also a businesswoman. She's a cultural businesswoman. She's very active in Mali. She has been putting up a space in Mali and herself. She's a true institution. But before I give you the floor, let me give the floor to Simon. He's going to introduce you, because I know the way you think is not only with your mind, but also you think with your heart.
À toi.
Merci Simon. Merci infiniment.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. About a decade ago, as an artist, a musician, author, actor, and also an actor of the cultural industry, player in the cultural industry, I've been involved in the first meeting following up on this new idea, taking on board culture for development. The first meeting was organized here in Brussels by the European Union. There was, and then 2 years ago we had a second meeting, conference and colloquium, and then we have this year. So this is the third time. And now we come up with this manifesto where we take on board all the thoughts, all the requirements made over those few years since the first meeting, pursuing this idea about how supporting cultural development in many countries, including in countries where there's not necessarily a lot of money to do that. In this manifesto, we realized that there has been an evolution from all the requirements from the first meeting. You realize too, when you read this paper, that there are requests for moving forward on some things where we've already been active, but we have to carry on. And we realize also there are new things coming up because the world is changing. There are new geopolitical and societal challenges. At world level, there are new technologies coming up. So new things come up and have been taken on board and have given a new shape to the traditional line of inquiry. And there is something here I would like to bring to light. Something where we have been quite negligent in following up, and this is still a challenge. It's
se renseigner et continuer à communiquer après ces rencontres.
Carrying on, having a dialogue after the meetings, and try to follow up through tangible actions in the field, the follow-up, the delivery. We haven't been good enough on this. And I realized that it is difficult to make sure that the money coming from the European Union dedicated to culture gets really into the hands of the institutions in the field in the different countries, because the procedures are very heavy. We should be able to better communicate between the players in the field and the European Commission delegations in the country. Progress has been made. People have been increasingly and better trained in the European Union delegations. People are more aware of what is going on in the country, also about what Europe is doing for culture in African countries, so that the European stakeholders are better trained to work with us in the field. But there's still a great deal to do, taking on board the differences between the different countries and realize that the situation is different. What in a country is a normal situation can be an emergency in another country. Some places we're in conflict situation or post-conflict situation, and there are places where culture is even more important than in other places where there is no political tragedy going on. Culture is about habits, what we used to do, our customs, how we live, we lived in the past, how we live today, and how we want to live tomorrow. The artists are here to help us shape, and the authors, the creators, are here to recall, to tell us what we were, and to shed light on what is going on, how our society is changing day in, day out, what we sometimes do not see by ourselves, and also to pave the way for the future, show us what the possible futures are. And culture can help us in integrating society, in education, in also economic development.
la cohésion sociale.
And culture can also be an engine for social cohesion. In conflict situations, in those places, it is essential that people bear in mind where they come from, who they are. And whatever the reasons for a conflict, people have to be reminded of their shared past, why people should carry on thinking we belong together, we are still members of the same family, of the same country. We have to be remembered of where we come from, and we should not give up our dreams, carry on dreaming for a better future. This is where culture is essential, and this is precisely the places where there is not enough money for culture. So those places should be identified as priorities. It should be prioritized to give money to the artists in those places. In those places, the red tape should be made easier. Sometimes those crises can come up very quickly, and if you do not act immediately, the consequences are going to be dire. And to act quickly when it's not too late, to cut the damage, make sure the damage is less thanks to culture. So I'll be shorter. I would like to congratulate all players on all the effort put into culture in our country so far. So that's very good. But what we still have to do is we would like the European Commission to make sure it has a diversified perception of our different countries, to have a tailor-made action, to be able to react fast and to have a custom-made support. As is done in the economy, there should also be a custom-made support in culture. As we do for businesses, we should have stakeholders that should be very well informed, should know about the money coming from the European Commission, and should be able to react quickly to make sure that their support is the best one. Well, thank you very much. This was a very precise request. It's true that sometimes the red tape can be heavy. Sometimes the rules and regulations for offering support can be kind of complex, but sometimes there are emergencies, and sometimes the rules should be adapted, and institutions should adapt to the emergency of a cultural demand. And this has been said also in previous meetings. And yes, there's been some progress. There's still some progress to do. On the manifesto, let me give the floor to Mr. Manservisi, Director General for Development Cooperation at the European Union, under Commissioner Louis Michel in 2009. It was the Barroso European Commission. It was the first time when we had this colloquium, Culture for Development. It was in 2009. And the idea is now to take stock 10 years on. In 2009, there was a taking stock about the last 10 years. Now let's take stock about the between 2009 and 2019. So I'm going to give you the floor, Mr. Manservisi, because I know how personally you are dedicated to this work. It's a true commitment. It's a philosophy. It's a way of looking at the world, which is yours. And you were breaking your ground then, and you are personally involved in shaping the recommendations of 2009, and I'm sure that the 2019 manifesto is also something powerful. I'm sure you have the hope that this should pave the way for a new relation between artists, creators, institutions, the European Commission, and in a time when we know this is a changing world. Even the artists realize this is a changing world, and we know we have to adapt. Mr. Manservisi, let me give you the floor. Thank you, Etienne. Thank you very much. Well, we're talking about diversity, and I feel like speaking Italian now because of diversity. But I realize interpreters would be hard put to translating me because they happen not to understand Italian. That's the way it is. So let me stick to one of the two languages, French or English. Thank you to you, Etienne, because you've really been the go-between between the different groups here. And this is what you're doing today, too. You're the middleman, you're the go-between. Today, what we wanted to do is to present this report, the minutes of this colloquium, the summary. And on this paper, we wanted to put a very clear idea. Culture is not just something isolated, a field of activity, but it's at the heart of social cohesion. And what undermines social cohesion today are inequalities. And inequalities are growing. Even though we have a growth, we have growing economies, inequalities get wider. So we have to ask ourselves the questions, what is the link here? We've been talking about culture. We have had a manifesto, a 10-point manifesto, where the artists are the ones who have to deliver. They are the ones who claim, who take us back to this 10-point manifesto. This is connected to the subjects we are debating over these 2 days. We realize what is the key challenge. The key challenge today, growing inequalities. Growth, prosperity is increasing, but inequalities are increasing too. How can we use culture to overcome this challenge, to identify the best solutions? How can we work towards a better social cohesion? And this has consequences for culture itself. If you have growing inequalities, you realize that there are different forms of cultures. You have lower quality culture and downgraded culture. A culture and B culture, culture for the elite and culture for the rest of the people. But culture should be popular, it should be for everyone, because culture comes up from the people. So there shouldn't be a two-tier culture. I would like now to thank all the people who've been working on this manifesto and who have identified those 10 points. Those 10 points are true commitment on a key aspect. First, we have to be previsible. We have to be clear about a commitment. We've had ups and downs in the past. You say have been personally involved. Well, the thing is, personally involved because I see things firsthand. I realize that if we separate culture from growth, this is going to be damaging. We need culture for a society. A society needs culture to be self-critical. So our work must be based on an all-inclusive dialogue. My reading of this manifesto is that it calls on us to deliver on following up. The European Union, other partners, are ready to have a policy for culture, putting it at the heart of our international cooperation and development policy. I can tell you that from political leaders, the answer is yes. Yes, but you have to be mindful, you have to be vigilant. But you have to carry on calling on the politicians to ask for this, putting culture at the heart of everything, but also to have visibility for the future. Second thing, the means, the finances. The finances are not up to the task. Our experience has shown us that we have to go beyond traditional methods. And I realize traditional methods are connected with heavy red tape. We have to break away from this, move to something new. And this something new would certainly have to involve the private sector, that the private sector should invest in culture. This is not about subsidies. This is about thinking about having a leverage effect. And a second prospect for the future, make sure that artists are directly involved in what we do. We should have perhaps less institutions in the work and more direct players. I'm not here talking badly about the institutions in target countries. But I realize that very often in the target countries, the thought has been, well, Europe, give money to the state and the state will deliver. In Burkina, we've been investing a great deal. And I realized this was not the case. The state must create a favorable environment of public policy, to have an enabling environment so that the artists can act. Artists should be able to get financing from a bank. They should have the possibility to act. So yes, the states have, the institutions have a work to do, but I think that institutions should rather be an enabling player and give the true power to the artists, to the recipients. Second aspect, dialogue, permanent dialogue. And this is how this manifesto is essential, because it says it's one of the points we should really carry on meeting each other every 2 months, every 2 years, so that we look at what has happened. This platform for exchanges, this LinkedIn, that's the way I call it, a culture for exchanges. This platform should be a living tool where people, a permanent platform where you have exchanges, where people keep exchanges, where we get inspiration and we have new thought for action. So we should have something that should get a sustainable over time, more dialogue, more accountability, and put the artists at the forefront. This is my summary, and I think that this manifesto is key. And it's a key that we come up with this manifesto now, because we're going to have a new commission anytime soon. So this is a time of institutional change. So in the run-up to the introduction of this new commission, we have now something very strong that we can give to the new masters. It's the right time to come up with this manifesto, and I think it's the right time to think about new ways for thinking about the future. Now, Etienne, let me go back to your first question at the beginning. The questions you put are indeed dealt with in this manifesto. You said right at the beginning, we are so good at pretending. How can we stop pretending? I mean, we can stop pretending if we start thinking about ourselves. If we say, yes, this is what we did very honestly, and if we are prepared to mend what we've been doing. Cultural heritage is about thinking about yourself. And perhaps then, if you look at this cultural heritage, we might come up with the instruments to stop pretending. We had the president for Cabo Verde earlier on. He said, what do we have as wealth? We have a people. Talents, the sea, the sun. This country has had a very good mark, not on economic performance, but it has had a very good mark. It came up #1 as the country of liberty and freedom. So this is wealth. I think we should all become Cabo Verdeans. This is really a case to follow, I would say. This is about immaterial heritage. And also in introduction, you mentioned tomorrow. How do we get to tomorrow? Well, this is a question also for us, for the European Union. How do we get to tomorrow? Well, we can get tomorrow in good shape by having a culture at the center of what we do and what we think. Thank you for what you've been doing. We hope to be up to the task, to rise to the challenge. We take those 3 issues very seriously and are highly political.
Il nous reste à peine 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. We only have 5 minutes left. You all know that the manifesto has been published on a platform, the European Commission platform. There is a link for you to also provide your thoughts, and you can also contribute to the writing of this manifesto. This manifesto should really now be part and parcel of our customs for dialogue and sharing. Now, we do have some little time for the room, if you want to take the floor. This is the time for you. We have the Francisco de Almeida who's asking for the mic. So the members of the panel are here to answer your questions. Could we have the mic be taken to Francisco?
On a posé le problème de la continuité.
Thank you. You've mentioned continuity, following up. And I've also heard shared destiny. So what we say here should also be said in the field, in the target countries. And in the light of the past experience, if here in Brussels there's been a further development of what we should be doing, I have to say that in the target countries, there's been very little change. So this, I would like to call on you here. We have to think about the mechanisms, about the the systems, about the systems of delivery, to make sure that this manifesto delivers, that it takes real life in the field, in the countries that are partners for the European Union, so that there should be a true cooperation and not just words, unilateral line of inquiry. Continuity, following up, this means there should be a true partnership, there should be a dialogue, and there should be also the involvement of the other part. Well, thank you very much, Francisco d'Almeida. This is true, Mr. Manservisi, Madam Minister, it is true. That what is written here in Brussels, what people came up here in Brussels, should lead to something else. It should be something only for insiders, but it should also rally around it the highest number of decision makers.
Justement, je pensais chez nous. Notre ministère a une architecture assez
precisely. I was thinking about a ministry. It's kind of complex administration, ministry. It's already kind of a challenge to have those ideas from the manifesto trickle down to all the levels of administration. Yes, it is complex. Every time you want ideas to move around, everybody should feel empowered. It's like the circular economy. Everybody is a player. It's like when you have a disease and you don't have the blood doesn't circulate very well. There should be interaction from top to bottom, from left to right, because we politicians actually we stay in power 4 or 5 times. We stay for 4 years in power. It's very short. It's a very short mandate to have major overhauls. So if we take 1 year just to make sure that the manifesto is well known to everyone, just take 1 year for that. It's not enough. It's not enough to make this document public. You need to have actions. You need to have something very practical, tangible, so that people can see, oh, this is what the manifesto is all about.
De faire l'appel, mais c'est vraiment à prendre ensemble le devoir.
Everybody has to learn, and we all have to take on board the views of the different partners and defining a balance. This is about finding a balance between the different stakeholders. Even with very good wishes, you can act very badly. I've had an experience with organized civil society. I've been working many years with civil society in Central America. With very little money, it's very difficult to have everybody move, the cultural industry like others. And I realize we all have this responsibility.
Très bien. Oui, Francisco d'Almeida. Rokia?
Dans la chaîne, on a tous.
So in the chain, every member of the chain is essential.
Well,
for cultural actors, I would say something that many people have said. It's not easy in the countries, but in the delegations, it would be very useful to have a follow-up of the manifesto. And delegations could also inform local cultural actors, and it would be useful to know what has happened. And the very important thing is to move to implementation and to very concrete and specific actions. So all this is fine and good. The text is very good, but what we want is impact. Impact in terms of investment, of financial help from the state or financial help from the EU. And if we want to have access to that, we need the right information. And there are many local cultural actors, there are many of them, and they do not have all that information. I understand that this is complicated, but it would be useful to have this information. This is a very specific request, and things have improved because we've been working together and cooperating in the cultural sector. But if I'm from Mali or Cabo Verde or in another country, if I want to know very specifically what the outcome of this meeting is, what the impact for me is, then it's more difficult to answer that question. Thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, it's 3:30 already, and we have to stop here for this panel. We started with a political statement, and I will end with a poetic statement. I'll quote a poet, and we said that what we discuss here is part of a moral and political imperative, because we're not talking about culture, we're talking about the future of the planet and the future of humanity. And this poet said, this poet Sunni said,
Je ne crois pas dans les droits d'une nation qui les aurait.
I don't believe in the rights of a nation that would be the only ones to have rights. We are living the century during which everything that is fundamental for humanity's survival has to be thought in a global or planet perspective, with solidarity and full freedom and being fully aware of the global impact. We are living in a world that is suffering the consequences of past centuries, and we have inherited a world that is the victim of clashes of different powers, and if we do not create a human community that is homogeneous, our world and our planet will become the place where only selling and buying will prevail, and this is the equivalent of living very dark times.
Merci, merci à tous.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks to all of you, and I wish you very fruitful discussions and days during these European Development Days.